Feeling inspired by hosts Ron and Tyler to work on your health? The MovieBuffs podcast is brought to you by Time to Train Fitness, your home for on-demand workouts for every level of fitness. Exercise with amazing certified instructors that want you to push through any barriers. At Time to Train Fitness, you'll find quality workouts across 6 class formats, including indoor cycling, HIIT, bar, yoga, strength training, and dance cardio. Stream brand new classes releasing every week in our 450 plus on-demand workout library. Use the link in the description to view all of the membership options and to start a free 5-day trial. Get ready to press play on your next workout.
Hey everybody, Ronjam here, and I'm excited to talk to you today about our sponsor. For any of my fellow fitness buffs out there who love to train, you also know that hard training leads to aches and pains, and that's why I love today's sponsor, Royal & Pure CBD. Their philosophy is to enhance your life with pure ingredients that you and your pet can feel good taking. Royal & Pure products combine the healing properties of hemp-derived CBD with other active botanical ingredients to enrich your daily activities and ease the aches, inflammation, and pains that come from being active, aging, or just daily life. I use their salve on all my achy spots, especially on my recovery days, and I always use their PM tincture to help me get a great night's sleep and recover to hit it hard the next day. They're offering our listeners 20% off at checkout by using code RONJAM20. So if you're interested in checking out their great products and seeing just how helpful they can be, visit royalandpure.com and use code RONJAM20 at checkout for 20% off. Okay, time for the show. Yes, you heard correctly. That was the theme song from Batman Forever. And welcome back, everybody, to the third episode of BackDay, or should I say BackDay. And technically, this is episode 3.5. I'll go into why in just a second. But usually on BackDay, I like to talk about one particular piece of media. But today is very special. As I said, it is Bat Day. So we're going to diverge from tradition here, and I'm going to talk about Batman. Not a movie, not a series, not a video game, not a comic book, but the actual idea of Batman, the character himself. And with the release of The Batman last week and Batman's 83rd anniversary later this month, I thought, what better place than here? What better time than now? Okay, so let's try this again. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about Batman, why Batman means so much to me, and finally, in defense of Affleck. In keeping with the theme of Batman's indomitable spirit and unwavering commitment to justice, I'm showing you all my commitment and unwavering spirit in terms of this podcast, and I'm putting that to the test because I already recorded and fully edited and prepared all the clips for this podcast once, only to find out that somehow in the export, the audio turned to garbage and there was no saving it. So that is why this is technically episode 3.5, because I am recording it again. So like the Dark Knight, I am here to rise again and triumph over the evil that is this episode. Without further ado, let's actually get into this shit. Well, I wanted to begin by talking about Batman the character and why he means so much to me. Anyone who knows me knows I am a huge Bat fan. My home is adorned with Batman memorabilia, from the refrigerator to the commemorative Batman Jim Lee art style mug sitting right in front of me. A funny story, the mug I'm sitting in front of will actually be part of the thumbnail for this episode, so you'll see the image I'm talking about. I have Batman memorabilia under my entertainment center here in my living room. My guest room has a giant, I want to say 48 by 36 inch painting of the 1966 Batman, as well as a Nightwing poster. Thankfully for my wife, our bedroom is devoid of Batman stuff, but that's the one place. So, like I said, anybody that knows me knows I'm a huge Bat fan, have been my whole life. Actually, from the ages of about 2 to 5, I wore a Batman costume. And I don't mean for Halloween, I meant just every day. It was my outfit. My poor, loving mother had to run around the hot summers of the Inland Empire searching for a Batman costume because I would inexorably tear or outgrow mine because I wore it every single fucking day. So that's the kind of Bat fan I am, and I want to talk about why. Well, first and foremost, Batman is just a guy, right? I know there can be arguments to be made that he's rich, that's a superpower, and obviously he's superhumanly able to plan for stuff, but yeah, plot armor aside, at his core, he's just a guy. So that has always been a thing that resonated for me, and that his biggest superpower is just he's committed, right? He perseveres, he works hard, and he does what it takes. And I think that's something that, every single person can take into their life, and it can be helpful. If you want to make yourself into something else, or you want to make improvements on your life, there is almost always something you can do. And that's one of the main things I loved about Batman. The other thing I want to talk about is I guess it's kind of funny, but each of my BackDay episodes tends to go into a little bit of an aside about mental health, but this will be no different. One of the things that I always liked about Batman is that he uses his struggles and his internal turmoil to try to do good. Now, obviously, in real life, you're not going to use any trauma you have to go out and beat the shit out of people for doing graffiti, and you shouldn't. But the idea is there, right? We can use things that maybe have gone wrong for us, or have had traumatic experiences, or even some neurological difficulties, or, some differences in how the average person would go through life. And you can use that as kind of your superpower, right? We can utilize the things that have gone bad in our lives, or the things that maybe set us back, and you can either let them mold you in a bad way, or, as Batman shows, we can let them mold us in a good way, and we can use that as our differentiating factor to make us a better person. So we can use our traumas as learning experiences to hopefully help other people. And we can use, even if it's something bad like Batman, use this rage and this anger, but he tries to use it for good. And I think that's something, again, that resonates with me and can help a lot of people. You don't have to let your shortcomings or your problems or, your traumas mold you into something bad. You can hopefully use it as a learning experience and try to help other people with it, or use it as your differentiating factor, because that's what I like to do. I like to say he uses his dark passenger for good. The other thing that I like to take out of that is that altruism for selfish reasons is still a net positive, right? So we can all admit that when you do something nice for somebody, it makes you feel pretty good, right? And that's kind of one of the themes I took out of Batman. Yeah, he's helping do justice because he wants vengeance, right? It's not because he just wants to do the right thing. He has this hole in his heart and his life that he has to fill by being Batman. Now, just because it's selfish and it's misguided doesn't mean that he's still not hopefully making a net positive in Gotham. And I think that's something that we can all take into our lives, that even if you're only, donating to a homeless shelter, or holding a door open for somebody, or paying someone a compliment, if you're only doing it because it makes you feel like a good person, that's okay. Because at the end of the day, you're making a net positive and you're improving someone else's day, and you might just improve the world around you. So that's an idea from Batman that I like to keep in my regular life. Say what you will about me, whatever that means. But that's something I like to do. Even if it's only because I feel crappy that day, I always try to go out, and every single day I have to do at least one act of kindness for somebody, ideally somebody I don't know. And that is one of the ways that I help control my mood. On my lowest days, I know I can still do that, and I know I can still have a positive effect on people around me. It boosts my mood. It makes me feel worthwhile, makes me feel like a better person, and it helps other people. So that's something that Batman has taught me and that I take into my life. One of the other things that I really like about Batman that I take into my everyday life and kind of molds my life is his training, right? He trains every single day. This is a bit of a fitness podcast, so I'm going to reach here to connect it. But he trains every single day to build himself physically and mentally into the kind of person that can do good. Now, we can take this into our real lives. You can train every day. You can make your body healthy. You can make your mind and your spirit as healthy as possible, and we can affect the world by being better versions of ourselves. And that's something I always loved, and that is something that I will bring up in our third portion of today's episode. Oh, and don't worry, I know I mentioned the Batman release last week. This is a non-The Batman by Matt Reeves episode. I won't be referring to that too much. Catch our full review, spoiler and otherwise, on next week's episode. You won't want to miss it. I promise I have a lot to say, because if I'm saying a shit ton of stuff now, imagine when I have LT grade to bounce off of. But yeah, like I said, we see him train, we see him improve himself, and it's something that we can all do. So now that I've talked about why Batman in general means so much to me, I am going to segue over into a little note on casting and, fan reaction. Now, this is going to be in reference to both Ben Affleck as well as Robert Pattinson, and it comes by way of Heath Ledger. The first time I found out Ben Affleck was cast as Batman, I was in the backseat of a friend's car on a trip to Las Vegas, and I got so upset I threw my phone. Luckily, I thought back to another moment in Batman casting history where I also got pretty upset, and that's when I first read that Heath Ledger was cast as the Joker. Now, this was probably 06, 07, so I was in my dad's office at our house, and I flipped out. I threw my chair. Everyone in the house was like, "What's wrong? Is something wrong? Is everything okay?" And I said, "Nothing's okay. The guy from 10 Things I Hate About You is the fucking Joker." And everyone said, "I don't know what you're talking about," and stopped throwing things. A lot of the internet felt the same way. And lo and behold, turned out it was not only not a reason to be concerned, it was probably the highlight of not only that movie, but that series. So with that in mind, when I found out that Ben Affleck was cast, sure, I was upset because I had all these preconceived notions in my mind about what the next Batman would be, and it wasn't him. But very quickly, I thought back to that moment, and I realized something, and I hope everyone else can realize it a little quicker now too. Most of the time, when people set out to make something, they do not set out to make something shitty. Sure, sometimes studios get involved and things get changed in order to maximize profits and in order to increase toy sales. For the most part, at least the actors, writers, directors, the people on set making it, they tend to be doing it because they want it to be good. I promise you, no actor wants their name attached to a piece of shit. No director wants their name attached to a piece of shit, and so on and so forth. So we got to remember, when they're casting somebody, they think that they're going to bring something that no one else can. So that helped me come to terms with the Batfleck casting, and it's also why I was pretty much immediately on board and began defending Robert Pattinson to everyone when he got cast. So again, this is going to be pretty much the only thing I talk about with the Batman. And so, everyone was saying, "Oh, Robert Pattinson, the Twilight guy, this is going to suck." And you got to remember, the movie studio, they weren't surprised he was from Twilight, right? They know he's the guy from Twilight. So they also knew, we all know that. So if they're going to go out on a limb here and cast this guy, they're going to put him as the lead in this movie that reportedly had a budget of over $200 million or somewhere around there. They're going to keep that in mind, right? So we have to assume that Robert Pattinson is going to bring something to this film that no other actor could, at least no other name actor that they could find, nobody that would have a draw. So when you see these kinds of castings, instead of getting pissed off and sending death threats to people or anything fucking insane like that, remember, people are trying to make something good. And oftentimes the actor just wants a job. They're out there trying to live their dream. So maybe don't be a psycho, be cool, give it a chance. And if you see the movie and still hate it, then maybe say, "Hey, I didn't like the performance, wish they wouldn't have cast this person." But ideally, give it a shot, because you never know. They just might surprise you. And with that, I'm going to come over to part 3, in defense of Batfleck. And I'm going to tell you the one thing that Batfleck did that we have not seen in any other Batman media to date, at least to date of these movies. So that thing is, we saw Batman come up against not only difficult odds, not only insurmountable odds, but impossible odds, right? At the beginning of Batman versus Superman, we see the rage in Ben Affleck's eyes, and I thought he played it beautifully. But we see the absolute rage and terror that comes with the helplessness of seeing a man fly his body through a city and level it with his hands. With ease, right? Superman was not injured at the end of that fight. He went through 50 buildings, he crashed a spaceship, he got lasered. He was not injured, right? So Batman sees this, and that rage and that helplessness that he thought he had burnt out of himself with years and years of training, the rage and the helplessness that came from seeing his parents murdered in front of him, was all back. And he knew, looking at this man, I cannot physically stop him. But he also knew that he had to try. And that right there is a differentiating factor between this Batman and all the others we had seen, right? In Batman and Batman Returns, right? Batman's fighting kind of regular guys with a little deformity. In Batman Forever, he's fighting regular guys, one with a deformity, one that was Jim Carrey. In Batman and Robin, sure, Mr. Freeze had the freeze gun and Bane had some superpowers, and so did Poison Ivy, but for the most part, physically, Batman was able to best them eventually. He was able to damage them with punches and kicks and batarangs and the like, and at the end of the day, he was able to beat them with a little bit of wits and mostly some big kicks and big punches. Then we come to Batman Begins, right? Ra's al Ghul, although a very tall man, He was still a 60-year-old Liam Neeson, and he was just as well trained as Batman, just not as physically strong and didn't have the gadgets, so Batman was able to physically best him. Yes, the League of Shadows did change the odds a bit, but Batman 1-on-1 or even 3-on-1 with these guys was shown to be stronger, more skilled, all that. Right, then we come to The Dark Knight. Again, Joker, just a guy with some facial scars. Same thing with Harvey Dent. There's not really any big mob threat, or, by mob I mean like a giant group of guys. Sure, Joker had his henchmen, but Batman was again shown to be able to physically best them. For sure 1-on-1 and even 5 and 6-on-1. Dark Knight Rises, we introduced Bane. Sure, he was slightly enhanced, but the whole point of that universe was everybody was about a regular guy. So he was a very strong guy, but at the end of the day, Batman loses to him and then comes back and wins by punching him harder. There was no special plan to, take out Bane's venom, to remove his back brace or any of that. Batman just punches him harder and Bane loses. Oh, and then Selena Kyle murders him with the bat bicycle guns. But anyway, all these movies, Batman is outclassed very slightly. If not, he is the physical superior to the other people. So we never have to see him really dig deep and really develop ways to win. Sure, he has to figure out the plan, maybe, or he has to, get together a group to fight the prisoner army that Bane had collected. But for the most part, he just goes out there and beats the shit out of people. So Batfleck, we see him. Some people thought it was a little goofy, but I kind of like the CrossFit montage. I watch it sometimes to get ready to go lift. But we see him physically training his body. We see him stealing the kryptonite from LexCorp and then sitting in his lab and developing the gas canisters and the kryptonite spear. And he puts all this work in with his body and his mind. He builds the mech suit and he knows, I'm probably going to die. But if I can take out Superman, I may have saved the entire human race. And you see that he is willing to do that. He's willing to give himself up. And I think that's really cool. And that's a side of Batman that we haven't seen before. And I really like that. And I think that's part of what made him such a good Batman. Now, coming off of that, we do have to mention that this Batman does murder a lot. If you look back, if you watch the Mr. Sunday movies kill count video, all of the Batmans murder people quite a bit. But this Batman is shown to wantonly murder and to kind of do it with aplomb and to be really into it. But that does connect to something that Batman, his rule from the comic books, right? He has the rule of no killing. Most directors kind of ignore it and they just, whatever, somebody died. But Batman has that rule for a reason. And the reason that it was purposely broken in this movie, it actually has a thematic connection. So Batman doesn't kill because, one, he's worried that he will become like the villains, because he knows he is so on the edge that if he starts killing, it'll be too easy. It'll be too easy. It's way easier for him to kill because he's so strong and so deadly and so prepared. So he doesn't. But the other reason, and the reason that a lot of people don't know, he doesn't kill because he wants to try to save everyone. That includes the villains. And the reason he wants to save the villains is because in his heart, he thinks of himself as a villain. That's why he's so scared to fall down that slope, because he knows where he'll end up. But the reason he wants to save the villains is to prove not only to the world at large, but to himself that everybody can be saved. So this extends in his mind to himself. So the idea of not killing his villains and hopefully rehabilitating them, or, saving as many people as possible, even if they've done something wrong, is his way in his heart and his mind to say that maybe one day I can stop being Batman. Maybe one day I'll have done enough good that I can live a life that I can deserve it. Zack Snyder has even said that the reason this Batman has given up on that is because he's given up on himself. So he's killing people because he doesn't care. And the actual arc for Batman was from this movie into Justice League. He was going to reinstate his no-killing rule, but also after seeing the hope that superpowered beings can give to the world, he was ready to sacrifice himself to kind of make up for the wrongs that he did. And you can see that in the third act of both versions of Justice League, that he was ready to do everything, just like he was in Batman versus Superman. But there was this redemption arc planned for Batman. And I think that's pretty cool. And, okay, not to defend it too much, but the warehouse scene is so fucking badass. I mean, it's by far the best Batman combat we've ever seen. No shade to anybody else. It's just, for me, it's the best, right? I love the choreography. I love the moves he does. I love how brutally effective he is, where 24 dudes, he's not worried. He is totally in charge and he kicks the shit out of them. But the reason I brought this up is because in that scene, he does probably murder a bunch of those guys. But there's one guy for sure we see him murder on purpose. And that is the person who's holding the flamethrower to Martha Kent. Now, this character is played by Callan Mulvey, and it's a character by the name of Anatoly Kniazev. Now, you might not know the name Anatoly Kniazev, but you might know his codename. And in the comics, his codename is KG Beast. He is a KGB officer who has cybernetic enhancements and works as a mercenary, and he's a bad guy. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is because in the comic books, KG Beast has been killed by Batman. He's one of the characters that we've seen him kill actually on 2 different occasions. On his initial run in the comic books, Batman fights him and they end up in the sewers, and Batman seals him in the Gotham sewers with no exit, no food, no water, no way to call out. Now, eventually they retcon that he was found and pulled out, but if you just took the ending of that issue at face value, Batman left him there to die. And then more recently, in I think 2018, after KG Beast had shot Nightwing in the head, nearly killing him and causing him to lose all memory, Batman hunts him down, uses his grappling hook to break his neck and paralyze him, and then just leaves him in the snow in the middle of the Arctic, again to die. Now, I don't know if he's popped back up again, but he might be dead out there. So in defense of Batfleck and in that scene, he did kill a guy who comic book Batman has canonically killed once or twice. That's probably about it for today's Bat Rant, but if you want to hear more, be sure to tune into next week's episode where we review Matt Reeves' The Batman. We break down plot, production, speculate for possible sequels. We talk about review, we talk about everything, and it's going to be a good one. If you like this episode, there are 2 other episodes in this BackDay series where it's just me ranting and a raving and talking my shit. Without El Tigre to slow me down, quite frankly. Yeah, so that's today's episode. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you so much for every single one of you listening. It might even only be one person listening, but thank you. Thank you for taking this time out of your day. I know you could be anywhere in the world doing absolutely anything, but you're here with me, and I appreciate it. At the end of the day, Batman for me has always been not only entertainment, but a bit of a light in the darkness, because he's a character who lives in the dark so that anybody who falls as low as him, he can push out on his shoulders if he needs to. The reason I say that is because I hope for each and every one of you that you find something like that you find a piece of media or a character or something, just anything in life that brings you light in what can be a pretty dark world. So on that note, I hope this brought you any amount of joy, because even recording this for the second time, it brings me a lot of joy just to get to sit here and pontificate about something that means so much to me and share some of my knowledge and my feelings and my passion with y'all. Well, that's it for now, my friends. Stay well, stay buff. Bye-bye.
Feeling inspired by hosts Ron and Tyler to work on your health? The MovieBuffs podcast is brought to you by Time to Train Fitness. Use the link in the description to view all of the membership options and to start a free 5-day trial. Get ready to press play on your next workout.